There we go.
Okay, hang on. Let me get something here. Wasn't really ready for go. Okay. Here we're back. We're going to finish this today. The true aspect of all phenomena. We left off on page 17. As usual, I'm going to back up a page. But before I get back into the lecture, because I think this all ties together, it just so happens that I'll put this link in at some point in time, but it's to my friends. It's some guys from the UK, and I think they're in Japan, but they always put in Seikyo newspaper or the latest stuff that President Ikeda is leaving for everyone in Japan, or is being translated and so forth. And so this morning, as I was getting ready for today, I just happened to open up the email that they sent. They send it out like every day, kind of a thing. I've been subscribed to this for at least 18 years. So it's definitely something that I would highly recommend. It's very, very good. It says, this is President Ikeda's recent guidance from the Seikyo newspaper. Okay, it says, if we exert ourselves in manifesting the powers of faith and practice, we can unleash the powers of the Buddha and the law. That means basically everything I've been talking about. To make the impossible possible. Okay? That's exactly when I say supernatural powers. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about things that shouldn't be able to be changed that suddenly just do. Okay? By putting our daimoku into action, which is the whole deal here, being the Buddha in your present form, let's open a great path to the expansion of Kosen Rufu. And there's a link to something from the World Tribune in the U.S. Says, realizing our prayers with the four powers, and there's a link there. I don't think I'll be able to leave that in YouTube, but if you give me an email at oldsouppp, I'll send it to you.
I'll leave it on
or you can do it on Facebook too. Yes, I know you can, but I'm saying YouTube isn't going to let me put a different link on there. Okay, so then after that, they give you a daily go-show. It says, the Buddha wrote that one should become the master of one's mind rather than let one's mind master oneself. That is also exactly what we're talking about. Mastering your mind means overcoming the doubts and lack of wisdom that keeps you from realizing your true identity. Okay? So that's totally key. You know, when you master your mind, to be the master of your mind is to be the Buddha, frankly speaking. Okay? And then he goes, a daily encouragement. This is from, again, June 19th, 2021. Or June 20th, 2021. Everything hinges on capable people. Everything hinges on capable people. That's what we're all trying to become. That's why you're listening to me read this stuff, so that you can become a capable person, a person capable of transmitting this Buddhism correctly to others in a way that revolutionizes their life. He says, the Daishonin writes, one whose presence pervades the realm of heaven, earth, and humanity, and who does not waver in the slightest, is called a king. Okay? So, iron heated in flames and pounded becomes a fine sword. It becomes a razor sharp sword. It becomes Buddhahood. He says, true kings, it continues, true kings, true champions of humanity are those who remain unshaken, calm, and resolute, who take responsibility for working for the happiness and security of the people and the peace and prosperity of society. These are the defining qualities of capable individuals of principle and integrity that the world is waiting for. These are the defining qualities of capable individuals of principle and integrity that the world is waiting for. So each one of us has the ability to answer that call. It has nothing to do with our position. It has nothing to do with whether we practice with the organization. We can follow in sync, just as we do here, okay? And by guiding our lives in the direction that we're encouraged to, we can see magnificent, unbelievable results that are truly the impossible possible. Okay? It's mind-blowing how much power exists in your life if you know how to bring it forth. Okay? So let's continue with this lecture, the true aspect of phenomena, of all phenomena throughout the universe. Go to page 17, but we're going to skip back because we were going to start with Nichiren's disciple, but that says the next requirement. So that would mean that we missed the first requirement. I'm going to just read through it so that there's continuity here. Going back to page 15, I will not read the Gosho just out of the fact that we've already read it yesterday. Let me go back just for continuity's sake. In this passage, Nichiren Daishonin explains the requirements of the Bodhisattvas of the earth. Now, no matter what, strive in faith. Here, Nichiren announces our good fortune in encountering Nam-myoho Renge-kyo in this lifetime. Life is in a state of constant flux from one lifetime to the next. We discussed that yesterday. Through this eternal process of death and rebirth, we were born human and encountered the Lotus Sutra in this lifetime. Nichiren reminds us of this rare fortune and encourages us to live as votaries of the Lotus Sutra. So this is all about living your life as a votary of the Lotus Sutra. Oh my goodness.
I know.
Are we okay?
Yes, we are.
All right. So, continuing on page 16, votaries of the Lotus Sutra. I'll try not to pound the table. Next, let's look at the passage, be known as a votary of the Lotus Sutra. Votaries of the Lotus Sutra are those who live in accord, are those who live according to the Sutra, the law that enables all people to attain Buddhahood. They read the Lotus Sutra through their lives and even risk their lives to spread it. Before this passage, Nichiren Daishonin explains that the votary will endure many great trials, such as the three powerful enemies, in order to spread the sutra. Be known as a votary of the Lotus Sutra thus means to spread the Lotus Sutra despite great obstacles, to struggle and win for one's own happiness and that of others by overcoming the things that keep people from getting there and showing that they can be defeated, that you can win, you can be the Buddha in your present form. The Lotus Sutra teaches that all people are capable of attaining Buddhahood. To help them realize that potential, the Buddha appeared in this world and expounded the law. Furthermore, the Lotus Sutra stresses that true Bodhisattvas, we discussed yesterday, true Bodhisattvas are those who, as the Buddha's disciples, fight for all people's enlightenment. They're going for Kosen Rufu, widespread propagation, the fulfillment of the dream, the fulfillment of the prophecy of Nichiren. Because they're Nichiren's original disciples, that's why they made their advent in the Sahe world in the in Mappo. Okay? Furthermore, the Lotus Sutra stresses that true Bodhisattvas are those who are, as the Buddha's disciples, fight for all people's enlightenment, who are at one with their mentor. Who are at one with their mentor means same mind as Nichiren, by the way. All right? So, to live by the Lotus Sutra is to have conviction in the existence of one's own Buddhahood and that of others, and to struggle toward their realization. To put simply, it is to fight for Kosen Rufu. Immediately before this passage, Nichiren explains the joy to be derived from propagating the great law and the importance of unselfish dedication to Buddhist practice. Unselfish dedication. Furthering those explanations, he expounds his teaching on the Bodhisattvas of the earth. His teaching on the Bodhisattvas of the earth. Not the teaching that's reflected in the 16th chapter of the Lotus Sutra, frankly speaking. Okay? This is the Buddhism of sowing, not Buddhism of harvest. That is, he teaches that those who propagate Myoho Renge-kyo, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, with altruistic faith, which means you're doing it for the sake of Kosen Rufu, are true votaries of the Lotus Sutra and Bodhisattvas of the earth. That's what it means to be a Bodhisattva of the earth. In many writings, top of page 17, Nichiren stresses the challenging of obstacles. For example, he writes, one who perseveres through great persecutions and embraces the sutra from beginning to end is the thus come one's emissary. Be known as a votary of the Lotus Sutra signifies that we must never retreat in faith, no matter what obstacles we face. To be known as the Sutra's votary, which is what we're supposed to be aspiring to be, is to advance while overcoming all obstacles. If we try to escape rather than overcome an obstacle, we cannot break through our fundamental darkness and reveal the power of Myoho Renge-kyo. We cannot, therefore, be called votaries of the Lotus Sutra for the latter day of the law. So unless you're doing the things that qualify being a bodhisattva of the earth, you may in fact not be practicing in a way that really accords with what that actually is. You should ponder that. That's not for me to decide or for anybody else to decide. That's to qualify to you that there is a requirement of you if you genuinely are aspiring to be a bodhisattva of the earth, if you're genuinely a practitioner and a believer of the true Buddhism of sowing. Okay, so I continue on page 17 now where it says, Nichiren's disciple, because that's what you are if you're everything else I've been talking about. As the second requirement for bodhisattvas of the earth, Nichiren Daishonin urges Sairenbo, and we're going on from yesterday now. As the second requirement for bodhisattvas of the earth, Nichiren Daishonin urges Sairenbo to remain my disciple for the rest of your life. So he doesn't ask Sairenbo to be a disciple of Shakyamuni Buddha for the rest of his life. He says, remain my disciple for the rest of your life. Embrace my teachings, not teachings of Shakyamuni. The teachings of Buddhism of sowing that are based on the Lotus Sutra. All the rest of that stuff was preliminary. It's not necessary to know shit about any of it anymore. Frankly speaking, you already know the key. It's Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Who's the one that delivered the key? Nichiren Daishonin. That's really, if you want to cut down on all the crap, just go with that. Just go with that. Be Nichiren's disciple and you are handled. So he says, remain my disciple for the rest of your life. Nichiren revealed Myoho Renge-kyo, next to the last paragraph on page 17, for all people's attainment of Buddhahood. And he widely propagated this law of the Lotus Sutra at the risk of his own life. In the latter day of the law, which is where we are right now, he was the first votary of the Lotus Sutra. He clarified the Lotus Sutra ideal and established its practice for the latter day of the law, chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo to the Gohonzon. None of, again, it's not the same as Shakyamuni was talking about, or even Dengyo or Nagarjuna or anybody, frankly speaking, or Tentai. This is a qualification that only the original teacher can deliver. That's the reason it doesn't exist until Nichiren comes around, because he's the source of it. And the source never allows another entity to be the revealer. Okay? So he says, Nichiren revealed Myoho Renge-kyo as the law for all people attaining all people's attainment of Buddhahood, and he widely propagated this law of the Lotus Sutra at the risk of his own life. In the latter day of the law, he was the first votary of the Lotus Sutra. He clarified the Lotus Sutra ideal and established its practice for the latter day. For this reason, to live as a votary of the Lotus Sutra means to live as Nichiren's disciple, never leaving the community of believers dedicated to Kosen Rufu with the unity of many in body and one in mind. And you can do that regardless of your association with others. It's based on you being of the same mind as Nichiren and aspiring to support and be in concert with others who are of the same mind as Nichiren. It's not belonging to a club or an organization, especially if some people practice almost like under a social circumstance. They go out to dinner after the meeting. They talk on the phone during the week about what's going on, with themselves and mundane stuff. This is all about Buddhahood, okay? These are the actions that create Buddhahood in oneself and others. It's not shooting the shit and having good friends that are all chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. This is living as the Buddha. Frankly, that's certainly the way I read it. It certainly seems to be pretty clear, all right? He says, today there is no organization dedicated to Kosen Rufu with the unity of many in body one in mind besides the SGI. I totally agree with that. No other organization has realized worldwide Kosen Rufu, Nichiren's will. And the Soka Gakkai, with having done that, though, is delivering the teaching that I'm reading to you that clarifies all these things that I'm saying. Okay? So it can't be a social club. It's already been defined by Mr. Saito. It's much deeper than that.
Yes.
Okay? President Ikeda is a mentor. He's our mentor. But he's not the original teacher. Okay? So, and nowhere. I started reading all this just because I knew he'd never said that. And I heard people claiming he was saying that. Okay? Like he's like the source of all this. He is not the source of all of this. Frankly speaking, Nichiren is. All right? And there's been a lineage of Bodhisattvas of the earth that were the real deal, that sprouted up here and there and have continued this to the point that I'm reading it to you now. Okay? So, on page 18, the record of the orally transmitted teachings, in the record of the orally transmitted teachings, he states, and now, when Nichiren chants Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, he is enabling all living beings to attain Buddhahood in the 10,000 years of the latter day of the law. Why? Because Shakyamuni's already said in the Lotus Sutra, the Lotus Sutra's power runs out after 2,000 years. And the Great Pure Law will be revealed in the 5th 500-year period. Okay, so there's nothing that you can get from Shakyamuni's teachings that has anything that's valid as it relates to empowerment or revealing true identity. It's not in the Lotus Sutra. It is, if you know how to read the Lotus Sutra from the perspective of Nichiren in the latter day, but it's not there in the text as Tentai has it expressed, or as actually Kumarajiva translated it, because that's all where all this is coming from, is Kumarajiva's translation. That's the Hokkekyo. That's the Lotus Sutra of the Wonderful Law. All right. So he says, President Ikeda commented. So let me go back again. Sorry. In the record of the orally transmitted teachings, he states, and now when Nichiren chants Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, he is enabling all living beings to attain Buddhahood in the 10,000 years of the latter day of the law. President Ikeda commented on this passage. Viewed from the grand future of 10,000 years, we may say that the 75th anniversary of the Soka Gakkai's founding and the 30th anniversary of the SGI's founding are truly pioneering stages for worldwide Kosen Rufu. A pioneering stage is when we leave for posterity, when we leave for the future, the examples of faith and practice. Okay? A pioneering stage is when we leave for posterity the profoundest struggle which will be the cause for future development. So you're not separated from Kosen Rufu that may not be achieved for some time after you're gone. You're one of the reasons why it happened. You're absolutely connected. You may have reconnected by manifesting again in order to participate further along the process of making that a realization that truly exists in society at large and the world as a whole. Okay? The point is that you should never consider yourself this little shit that's outside of everything. Anybody can be this. Anybody can do this. That's the crazy power of this Gohonzon and this Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. It doesn't separate anything. So if you want to be all this badass stuff, you can be, and you're supposed to want to be. And you're supposed to believe you can be, and you're supposed to give it every ounce of your effort to actually accomplish. Okay? So he says, regarding this, he says, okay, will be the cause for future development. Regarding this, Nichiren states in the middle of page 18, the deeper the roots, the more prolific the branches, the farther the source, the longer the stream. From On Repaying Debts of Gratitude, he says, let us stretch the roots, President Ikeda has said here. Let us stretch the roots of expansion and establish the source of victory for 10,000 years to come. It's kind of beyond your comprehension. We haven't even had 10,000 years of civilization that we can really accurately reflect on. Okay? And he says, let us stretch the roots of expansion and establish the source of victory for 10,000 years to come while solidifying our unity of many in body, one in mind. And that's all of us that have the same mind as Nichiren. That's really what's already been clarified. It's not all us that are members of Soka Gakkai. That's a component of this. But it's really all of us that are of the same mind as Nichiren.
Yes.
All right? President Ikeda then concludes, as President Ikeda encouraged us, let's advance with a sense of responsibility and pride. I'm proud to be a Bodhisattva of the earth, and I certainly have a sense of responsibility, with the realization that we are living in the pioneering stage of worldwide Kosarufa for the sake of those who follow for 10,000 years to come. Pretty heady stuff. Now we get into even more heady stuff. On page 18, the same mind as Nichiren. This is very, very key. Please pay attention. And I'm not really looking at the list. I don't know what I'm looking at here. I hope you see me looking at you.
Yes.
Okay. The same mind as Nichiren, bottom of page 18. Nichiren Daishonin writes, if you are of the same mind as Nichiren, you must be a Bodhisattva of the earth. To be of the same mind as Nichiren means to share the same intention as him in his role as Bodhisattva superior practices. And what does that mean? I'll do Kosen Rufu by myself. I will make fundamental darkness defeated. I don't need to count on anybody else. I am the thus come one. That was his conviction. That's how he lived his life. He already knew, you can't kill me. Okay? It's adopting that. He's saying, to be of the same mind as Nichiren means to share the same intention. What's his intention? Widespread Kosen Rufu, right. Complete equalization of all living beings.
Yes.
All right? As him in his role as Bodhisattva superior practices. Whose superior practices? The leader of the Bodhisattvas of the earth. Okay? So he's saying don't aspire to a minor role, accept the reality that you have a major role. You're the Buddha. How could you have a minor role? Okay? You're not thinking right if you think that way. In the Lotus Sutra, Bodhisattva superior practices as a representative of all the Bodhisattvas of the earth vows to widely propagate the sutra after Shakyamuni's passing. That means we're taking that same vow with that same sense of responsibility to do it ourselves if we have to. It's not about, I'll do it if somebody else does it with me. Okay? Or let me find some people that agree with me. This is pretty tough. I don't think, it's really about that mindset. That's a mindset of Tanasabaru Makaguchi. That's a mindset of Josei Toda. That's a mindset of Daisaku Ikeda. That was a mindset of Nichiren Daishonin. That's why those three have that same mindset. That's the same mind as Nichiren. Okay? To continue on page 19, first full paragraph. Pardon me, I might have skipped something here. Let me go back. The same mind as Nichiren. Nichiren Daishonin writes, if you are of the same mind as Nichiren, you must be a Bodhisattva of the earth. To be of the same mind as Nichiren means to share the same intention as him in his role as Bodhisattva superior practices. In the Lotus Sutra, Bodhisattva superior practices as a representative of all the Bodhisattvas of the earth vows to widely propagate the sutra after Shakyamuni's passing. To share this great vow to accomplish Kosen Rufu is to be of the same mind as Nichiren. To be of the same mind of Nichiren, therefore, is the essential condition for a Bodhisattva of the earth. In other words, you're not even really, you don't even qualify to think about yourself that way unless you've gotten to that point where you believe in Kosen Rufu and you're fighting for Kosen Rufu. He says, in this regard, President Ikeda said, we do not become of the same mind as Nichiren merely by praying. Mr. Saito quotes President Ikeda. That's why President Ikeda isn't just the one giving this lecture. We do not become of the same mind as Nichiren merely by praying. Those whose hearts are aflame with the passion to introduce others to Nichiren Buddhism, to widely propagate the law for the happiness of all, are of the same mind as Nichiren. In that respect, Presidents Makaguchi and Toda truly fought with the same spirit as Nichiren Daishonin, and they absolutely did. They both essentially gave their lives for his teaching. Their lives for his teaching. Only the SGI is and will forever remain of the same mind as Nichiren. The Daishonin surely praises most highly those who protect and work to develop the SGI. I hope you all will. I am, even though I'm not practicing with the SGI. President Ikeda further discusses this concept. What we have discussed so far clearly indicates that being of the same mind as Nichiren means sustaining resolute faith to expose the wrongs of formidable adversaries and to battle the three powerful enemies just as Nichiren did. Or more simply, it means persevering in the practice of the Votary of the Lotus Sutra as Nichiren did. And how do we do that? Through Shakabuku. We, just like the Shakyamuni says he's quoted in the Nirvana Sutras where he says this, it's by protecting the law that I've acquired this diamond-like body, okay? That's the teaching. We become the Buddha by protecting the teaching, okay? That's what advances our life. That's when we're out talking about it, we're learning about it. Why are we learning about it? Not to just know for ourselves, but to teach others. He says, President Ikeda further discusses this concept. What we have discussed so far clearly indicates that being of the same mind as Nichiren means maintaining resolute faith to expose the wrongs of formidable adversaries and to battle the three powerful enemies just as Nichiren did. Or more simply, it means persevering in the practice of the Votary of the Lotus Sutra as Nichiren did. So when I talk about same mind, we have the same enlightenment, there's no separation between you and Nichiren. That is what the teaching is qualifying. Nichiren was not some super special guy, more special than us. He was a human being. He was definitely more special as it relates to his karmic pretense. But as a temporary gathering of the five components trying to do something to help others that have manifested as temporary gatherings of the five components on earth in the fifth 500 year and 10 years, 10,000 years into the future, it's the only deal. So he says, again, or more simply, it means persevering in the practice of the Votary of the Lotus Sutra as Nichiren did. To be the Votary of the Lotus Sutra as Nichiren was, as we can be. The Buddha seeks genuine disciples, not disciples who merely pray passively for his merciful protection as if he were some transcendent being. The Buddha longs for disciples who will actively struggle alongside him. That paragraph clarifies something very, very important. Okay, when it has to be defined as genuine disciples, he seeks genuine disciples. He's also qualifying that there's such a thing as being a disciple, but not being genuine in the actions that you're taking to substantiate that point. Okay, and if you're not taking those actions, you're not being genuine. You're being wishful thinking. It's all talk. It's all theoretical. It's all no different than Christianity or any other religion saying a bunch of stuff, but not living or backing it up or showing the actual proof of the power that makes you as powerful as the original person of any of those religions. So again, understand that what I'm about to say is not to hurt your feelings, it's just a strict truth, and it's in this thing for you to know because you got to know the truth. Yes. Those who expect only to be protected by the mentor, the Gohanzan, by Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, still have quite a long way to go before they can call themselves real disciples. That's why he qualified genuine. Buddha seeks genuine disciples. You have a long way to go. If all you chant for is protection, All you want is to have your ass saved.
Benefit.
Benefits. Take no responsibility for your life or changing and doing human revolution. All you're going to do is slow that process down, frankly, if that's all you do. So he says that's why they got a long way to go before they can even really actually understand what's being described here. And it's okay if you don't. Read it and read it and read it. You will. Okay? He says, it is by striving in the same manner as the mentor to protect our fellow human beings. To protect our fellow human beings, not just to protect our fellow Soka Gakkai members. If this is something that has to do with human being, yeah, you're a bodhisattva of the earth. And all human beings are bodhisattvas of the earth. They're just not awakened to that truth.
Right.
Okay?
Yes.
So that's what he's saying. We have to care about earth. We can't just care about us. We can't just care about our families. We can't care about our countries. We can't care about our power centers. We got to care about everything. And he says, it is by striving in the same manner as the mentor to protect our fellow human beings that we qualify as true disciples, true lions. You could say that the Lotus Sutra itself constitutes an appeal by the mentor, an appeal by the original teacher to his original disciples. Give rise to yourselves. Embrace what you've embraced already and do what you know you're supposed to do. I preceded you for the purpose of you being able to give rise and accomplish what I've said will be accomplished. Nichiren accomplishes Kosen Rufu by revealing Nam Myoho Renge Kyo and the circumstance that allows Kosen Rufu to take place. The Bodhisattvas of the earth are the ones, though, that propagate that truth and make it manifest and manifold in the real world. We're the ones that get 1/3 of the population of earth practicing. Okay? So we're the ones that have to do Kosen Rufu. We have to be of the same mind. He said, you can say that the Lotus Sutra itself constitutes an appeal by the mentor with the Buddha, Nichiren, voicing his hopes and expectations that genuine disciples, real bodhisattvas of the earth, will appear. For without the presence of genuine disciples, real bodhisattvas of the earth, as the Lotus Sutra states, it will not be possible to lead the people of the latter day to enlightenment. The bodhisattvas of the earth are the only ones capable of withstanding the shit that's going to fly when we do that, man. It takes solid faith. We never go Titan. We're the special forces, right? That's why he says the pioneering stage. The pioneering stage is when it's most difficult to do everything.
Ooh.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not the time when everybody else is doing it. You're, hey, yeah, let's all go chant. Yeah, everybody go. Hey, yeah, of course let's go chant. We're at the stage when nobody wants to chant. Everybody's attacking us. Everybody's second-guessing us. Everybody's putting us down. Okay? That's why you have to understand who you are, so that shit just rolls off your back and you can laugh about it instead of start slandering. He says, so, okay, Nichiren continues on middle of page 20. And if you are a bodhisattva of the earth, there is not the slightest doubt you have been a disciple of Shakyamuni Buddha from the remote past. Oh, that's a surface meaning. He says, those who live to accomplish the great vow of Kosen Rufu satisfy the requirements for being bodhisattvas of the earth. When one's way of life as a bodhisattva of the earth is solidified, Nichiren says that person becomes, in essence, one of Shakyamuni's disciples from the remote past, a disciple of the eternal Buddha. But let's qualify it again. Those who live to accomplish the great vow of Kosen Rufu. They don't live to get benefits. They live to be Buddhas in their present form, teach others the teaching that has allowed that to be the case in their lives, and to make steady progress toward the widespread propagation that is the pacification of the land through the propagation of the law, Kosen Rufu. He says, again, when one's way of life as a bodhisattva of the earth is solidified. So this is who you are, how you are, what you believe yourself to be. That's way of life. Okay? It's not about just being a member of a religious organization or a lay organization. Let's call it that, okay? All right? Nichiren says that that person becomes, in essence, one of Shakyamuni's disciples from the remote past, a disciple of the eternal Buddha. Now, let's qualify what that really is for us, though, in the latter day as we look at this. Nichiren then quotes the Lotus Sutras Emerging from the Earth chapter. What is that? The Emerging from the Earth is the 14th chapter. No, 15th chapter. Yeah, 15th chapter. No. Yeah, it's 15th chapter, because that's Emerging from the Earth is when everybody says, where did these guys come from? That's when he goes into, it's been a long time since I actually attained Buddhahood in the 16th chapter. So 15th chapter, okay. Nichiren then quotes the Lotus Sutras Emerging from the Earth chapter. Ever since the long distant past, I have been teaching and converting this multitude. This indicates Shakyamuni's attainment of Buddhahood in the remote past instead of his present lifetime. In the following chapter, Lifespan, I was right, the sutra clarifies in detail Shakyamuni's attainment of Buddhahood in the remote past. The Bodhisattvas of the earth are Shakyamuni's disciples from the remote past in the Lotus Sutra. This, however, is the surface meaning of the sutra text. It's not how Nichiren read it. Okay, can't change the words because they're from who did I just say was the great translator? Whatever, you know what I'm saying. Let me continue. I'm jumping around too much. The Bodhisattvas of the earth are Shakyamuni's disciples, Kumarajiva. The Bodhisattvas of the earth are Shakyamuni's disciples from the remote past. This, however, is the surface meaning of the sutra text. Being a disciple of Shakyamuni Buddha from the remote past does not simply mean being Shakyamuni's disciple.
Right.
Rather, it means being a disciple of the eternal Buddha. Okay? Understand that. That's how we read this. But what does this mean? It means to exert oneself in the Bodhisattva practice while in the state of Buddhahood. Okay? Because all Bodhisattvas of the earth are original disciples of the original teacher. They didn't manifest here as wannabes. They're Buddhas. They're Buddhas that manifest in a state of Bodhisattvahood in order to demonstrate and teach others how to manifest Bodhisattvahood to become Buddhas, which they reveal in their lifetime, so that there can be no mistake about whether Bodhisattvas become Buddhas. Okay? So that's the deal. But what does this mean? It means to exert oneself in the Bodhisattva practice while in the state of Buddhahood. When you chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, you are a Buddha.
Yes.
Make no mistake about it. You function as a Bodhisattva. You're not going to go around with Buddha on your t-shirt. Nobody's going to take you seriously. You won't be able to open your mouth. You demonstrate Buddha by who you are.
Yes.
Okay? Not by what's coming out of your mouth. All right? You demonstrate Bodhisattva by what's coming out of your mouth. Okay? So he says, traditionally we practice as Bodhisattvas toward revealing our Buddhahood. The Bodhisattvas of the earth, however, we don't do it that way. The Bodhisattvas of the earth, however, are already in the state of Buddhahood. That's why I'm not being audacious or arrogant in saying that about me. That's why I'm saying it about you. If you have the same mind as Nichiren, I do. Okay? That's the only difference. The Bodhisattvas of the earth, however, are already in the state of Buddhahood, while keeping the eternal Buddha's life within the Nam-myoho Renge-kyo that's in me, that makes me the Bodhisattva of the earth that I am. They exert themselves in the Bodhisattva practice, which is demonstrating with my transcendental supernatural powers. My transcendental supernatural powers are the fact that I'm a living being. I can take action. I can do things. I can show and validate the mind of the Buddha by being the Buddha. I chant Nam-myoho Renge. I can do all the things that I've come here to teach everybody else to do, to be just like me. I'm not better than them. Never, ever, 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 ever. This is the grand equality of all things. Living beings are everything. Okay? So he's saying, while keeping the eternal Buddha's life within, they exert themselves in the Bodhisattva practice. In other words, the Bodhisattvas of the earth represent the state of Bodhisattva within the life of the eternal Buddha. We are all extensions of the original teacher, okay? Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is the eternal Buddha's life. One with the original teacher. The original state and the original teacher's life are merged. Our life as such then automatically also becomes merged because all life is no separation. If you don't get this, I'm sorry. But it's very cool shit. It means that there is nobody better than you and there is nobody less than you. Isn't a wonderful, wonderful thought? What a wonderful way to perceive life.
Yes.
Okay? And to give it value and meaning. All right? So he says, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is the eternal Buddha's life. When we chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, therefore, we tap the state of Buddhahood from within and bring forth the great powers of Buddhahood. Through these powers, we promote Kosen Rufu in this evil age. Next, Nichiren writes, were they not bodhisattvas of the earth, they could not chant the Daimoku. This is because Myoho Renge-kyo must be practiced for self and others. Those who chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo for both are bodhisattvas of the earth, which means, again, you're not just chanting for benefits. You're chanting for Kosen Rufu. You've gone beyond that baby stage. In contrast, chanting merely as a formality or ritual is in no way what Nichiren propagated. Therefore, were you to ask a priest to chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo for you, that prayer could not be considered the prayer of the Bodhisattva of the earth. Because you're not going to ask somebody to do something else you can do. Anyone, I have this big circle around this, anyone can put a good appearance at the bottom of page 21. Anyone can put up a good appearance of chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. But what is most important, because you can put up a good front about chanting, but what is most important is whether one chants with the same mind as Nichiren, and your actions will reveal that. That can't be. Are we no longer recording?
Oh, it's on again.
Okay, I don't know if
I don't know either.
We don't know if we lost anything.
A few seconds, yeah. We covered it.
Sorry, again. Anyone can put up a good appearance of chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, but what is most important is whether one chants with the same mind as Nichiren. Again, being of the same mind as Nichiren means to share Nichiren's earnest desire to spread Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. It is to chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo while promoting Kosen Rufu and aiming toward the attainment of Buddhahood for oneself and others. Then it goes into, on page 22, the equality of women and men. Okay, and don't forget, until this Buddhism, there was a discernment that you had to transmigrate and become reborn as a man before you could attain Buddhahood. You couldn't be a female Buddha. No. Not until Lotus Sutra, not until Dragon King's daughter. That's the significance. All the other teachings prior to Lotus Sutra say you gotta get out of that womanness and become a man. Grow a penis and you can become a Buddha. Excuse me, I'm joking. But it's, again, what does the Daishonin teach us? The equality. Now that equality means equality. It means no difference whatsoever. It means that there's a karmic differentiation. Okay, my wife gave birth to our 6 kids. I didn't. All right, there is definitely a karmic differentiation predicated on gender. But in terms of value of life, power of life, the ability to manifest Buddhahood, 0, 0, 0. And it doesn't matter what color you are. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what ethnicity you are. There is no separation. So he says, the equality of men and women and men, might as well say the equality of all people, frankly. Nichiren Daishonin writes there should be no discrimination among those who propagate the 5 characters of Myoho Renge-kyo in the latter day of the law, be they men or women. The power of chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo enables all people to bring forth their innate Buddhahood. All people to bring forth their innate Buddhahood. The supreme potential of humanity. In terms of their capacity to bring forth this superlative state of life, all people are equal. In terms of their capacity to bring forth, so nobody's excluded. No matter how terrible you are, it doesn't matter. You're not excluded. All people are equal. There is no difference between men and women. So he's qualified there. All people are equal. By elucidating Buddhahood, the highest spiritual state for all humanity, Nichiren Buddhism proclaims the genuine equality of men and women, which transcends biological and social differences. The less people are aware of humanity's supreme spirituality, however, the more they discriminate and get caught up in the biological and social differences between men and women. And now President Ikeda is going to say some stuff that I'm going to explain as he's saying it because it's kind of very germane to me personally. In the Wisdom of the Lotus Sutra, President Ikeda says that when masculinity and femininity become harmonized in someone, that person becomes complete as a human being. The point is that we must learn to balance these two sides, he writes. That's an important part of becoming a mature, self-actualized individual. In other words, if a man only possesses so-called masculine traits, he will be a bore. He'd be just a freaking asshole. Most men are that have not been awakened to any aspect of what we're talking about. This is not really where guys come from generally. To be honest, that's why look around at the Kaikon next time. You're going to see more girls than boys there. Okay, right now the Soka Gakkai has survived because of women, not because of men. Okay, yes, President Ikeda is a man. He's been leading us. President Toda was a man. Makaguchi was also male. But my point is that there's never been a separation. There's always been women's division leaders as well as men's division leaders. And the real glue of the Soka Gakkai has been the women's division. Frankly speaking, that's just a fact. Okay? So thank goodness that the women are completely equal to the men, or we'd all be all screwed already. All right? So he says, the Imbalancing Act. So he's basically saying, don't be all macho. At the same time, don't be all so weak and damseled out. Okay? Have a little bit of each in you. Now, I don't know if everybody's aware of it, but I'm going to say this because I've been to enough shrinks that I know that it's the truth. About 25% of males are born with female personalities. Now, that has nothing to do with sexuality. Okay? It has to do with the way they look at things and the way their personality is shaped. Okay? On the other hand, women, about 25% of women have personality of men. And the rest of them, okay? So this is really all about the reality that there is already this sharing of these traits. It's not something that's just specific to men. All men aren't the same. All women aren't the same. There's some value in men. There's some value in women. Let's combine the best as we can as whatever gender we are. Let's respect the other gender as equal to the one that we are. Let's understand that there's really no difference between us, even though we have different ways of viewing things, different levels of personality and sensitivity, a lot of differences, but those are to create the unity that's necessary. If I can't learn from you as a female, how can I perceive what President Ikeda is talking about? If you can't learn from me as a male, how can you perceive what President Ikeda is talking about? Okay, so that's all I'm trying to say here, all right? And we know that Soka Gakkai crossed over all the lines because SGI says men and women are completely equal. So if they do have a sexuality that conforms to an attraction to someone of the same gender, go for it, baby. We got big multicolored flags all over us. all right, as SGI members. We don't discriminate. We don't discriminate about money, anything, power, influence, nothing, nor sexual proclivity, sexual orientation. That's what this is all saying. So now let me read it again. President Ikeda talking in the Wisdom of the Lotus Sutra, which are 25, 26-year-old texts at this point. The Wisdom of the Lotus Sutra, in the Wisdom of the Lotus Sutra, President Ikeda says that when masculinity and femininity become harmonized in someone, that person becomes complete as a human being. The point is that we must learn to balance these two sides. By the way, I have a female personality. The point is that we must learn to balance these two sides, he writes. That's an important part of becoming a mature and self-actualized individual. In other words, if a man only possesses so-called masculine traits, he will be a bore. To be well-rounded, we need to give play to our feminine qualities as well. President Ikeda is telling us as guys, open your mind, okay? For example, we need to cultivate the sensitivity and openness to be able to understand another person's heart. By the same token, it's not enough for women to possess only so-called feminine traits. Otherwise, they cannot bring her life to fruition because she'll allow herself to be held back by the guys. Okay? So she's got to understand that. So that that discrimination, what's the word? Misogyny, that's natural in society at this stage, still in this century, okay, can be blown away. It can disappear. That's only when we unite as genders, okay, and perceive each other as equals can that occur. In any society, certain qualities will be sought in men and in women according to the standards of that society. And the more closely people try to match those stereotypes, the more other traits within them will tend to be repressed. So if you don't go for what I just said, you are not going to be able to grow in the manner that he's talking about. You need to grow in order to be who he's talking about. You really can be. Okay? Since my youth, Dante's Divine Comedy and Goethe's Faust have continued to hold a strong attraction for me. Both of these works, of which I have spoken numerous times, portray a certain longing and admiration for the feminine. Perhaps Dante, for the sake of his own completion as a human being, required an ideal image of the feminine, and found this in Beatrice. I don't know either one of these things, Faust or Goethe, I don't know. So I don't know if you know, good. The following famous lines conclude Goethe's Faust: women eternally show us the way. Boy, I have wisdom to understand that. It may be that Goethe, if I'm even pronouncing him right, Goethe, as a man, keeps seeking the eternal feminine in a spiritual struggle to become a complete human being. The Buddha is the epitome of a complete human being. We're in the home stretch. The meaning of emerging from the earth. At first, this is from the Gosho, at first only Nichiren chanted Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, but then 2, 3, and 100 others followed, chanting and teaching others. Propagation will unfold this way in the future as well. Does this not signify emerging from the earth? At the same time, when the law has spread far and wide, the entire Japanese nation will chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo as surely as an arrow aimed at the earth cannot miss the target. Nichiren Daishonin was confident that the law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, which he revealed, is capable of saving all people. He looked to the distant future, confident that Kosen Rufu would be achieved. And it is only the SGI that has actualized this hopeful vision of Kosen Rufu. During the last, and that's why I'm reading this to you, that's why, even though I don't practice with the Soka Gakkai, that is the way to practice that, if I could, I would. I'm doing what I can. During the last 700 years, very few individuals have come in contact with Nichiren's convictions, let alone have stood up in faith. Only the Soka Gakkai, true, has given birth to a multitude of bodhisattvas of earth exactly as described in this passage. Nichiren asks, does this not signify emerging from the earth? In the Lotus Sutra's Emerging from the Earth chapter, countless bodhisattvas of the earth appear. Emerging from the earth emerging from the earth signifies many people appearing one after another to practice for the sake of Kosen Rufu, just as Nichiren taught. Or actually, one after another appearing with the same mind as Nichiren, is what that sentence also just said. As mentioned earlier, we cannot accomplish Kosen Rufu if we chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo out of formality. What is most important is to chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo as a bodhisattva of the earth, I'm adding, with the same mind as Nichiren, he says. What is most important is to chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo with the same mind as Nichiren, which is to chant it as a bodhisattva of the earth. Chanting and spreading Nam-myoho Renge-kyo exactly as Nichiren did. Exactly as Nichiren did, toward Kosen Rufu and the attainment of Buddhahood for self and others. This is authentic prayer. First, Nichiren stood up, sharing the same mind as him. Another followed. Sharing the same mind as him, another followed, and then another. In Nichiren's time as in ours, this is the only formula for Kosen Rufu. So what did he just say? Very clearly. Okay. First, Nichiren stood up. Sharing the same mind as him, another followed. That means that another followed by, how did they follow? By sharing the same mind as Nichiren. And then another, by sharing the same mind as Nichiren. And that continues to today. This is the way we do it. We share the same mind as Nichiren. That is the key. That's a bodhisattva of the earth. First, Nichiren stood up, sharing the same mind as him. Another followed, and then another. In Nichiren's time as in ours, this is the only formula for Kosen Rufu. President Ikeda writes, Kosen Rufu begins with one person. It did. Nichiren Daishonin. It begins with us, because each of us are the only ones who control ourselves as entities. No matter how many times our society may change, this fundamental formula will hold true. It's the individuals that have the same mind as Nichiren that give rise to the correct teaching continuing to be propagated. Likewise, in the actions of the Votary of the Lotus Sutra, one of his very famous goshos, Nichiren Daishonin solemnly exhorts his followers, now at the beginning of the latter day of the law, Nichiren, am the first to embark on propagating throughout Japavipa the 5 characters of Myoho Renge-kyo, which are the heart of the Lotus Sutra and the eye of all Buddhists. My disciples, form your ranks and follow me. So he's basically saying, I'm the first one to do what I'm doing. Now all of you do exactly what I'm doing. All right? My disciples, form your ranks and follow me and surpass even Maheka Shayapa or Ananda Tiantai or Dengyo, which is like saying a whole lot in 1273. Okay? That you can surpass. If you follow me, you'll surpass Maheka Shayapa, Ananda, these are all legendary disciples of Shakyamuni. The Soka Gakkai, an organization that has inherited the Buddha's intent and decree, has risen into action in response to this lion's roar of Nichiren Daishonin. Through the all-out efforts of our noble members, we have now entered a time of unprecedented opportunity for enabling increasing numbers to form a connection with Buddhism. Especially now we got a worldwide plague. People are stuck at home. This is the time to talk to everybody you can about Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Let us once again deeply recognize our profound mission in this lifetime as bodhisattvas of the earth. One person communicating the teaching to another is the way to develop Kosen Rufu, and this exemplifies emerging from the earth. Chanting and teaching others refers to practicing for oneself and others. We must tell others about Nam-myoho Renge-kyo while chanting it out for ourselves, says Nichiren. What is most important is to communicate the correct meaning of faith to each person, so they don't misunderstand and think, oh, I gotta say these words and then all this magic shit will happen. They have to understand the truth of the teaching, which means you do. All right? What is most important is to communicate the correct meaning of faith to each person. You can't do that if you don't know it. This may seem a roundabout way to achieve Kosen Rufu, but it is only through each person's steady progress in faith that countless bodhisattvas of the earth will emerge, because you're the one. Bodhisattvas of the earth emerge as a result of a relationship with other bodhisattvas of the earth, because it's always a mentor-disciple, 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 but it's the same mentor. And it's really the same disciples. It's the original mentor, the original disciples. But they always give rise to one another. Do understand that. All right? The bodhisattvas of the earth don't come before the original teacher. They can't. That's not their job. They had not been entrusted by the Buddha with the task. It says so here in the Gosha. What is important is to communicate the correct meaning of faith to each person. This may seem a roundabout way to achieve Kosen Rufu, but it is only through each person's steady progress in faith that countless bodhisattvas of the earth will emerge. You have to do human revolution for others to appear around you to learn from you. Myoho Renge-kyo, which is dormant within our lives, may be compared to a seed. With the water of faith or confidence in Nichiren's teachings, this seed will sprout, grow, and blossom as the life of Buddhahood. By communicating faith correctly to others, then, we spread Myoho Renge-kyo. Now Myoho Renge-kyo. As President Keita says, the Daishonin says with regard to the meaning of bodhisattvas of the earth, at first, only Nichiren chanted Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, but then 2, 3, and 100 followed, chanting and teaching others. Propagation will unfold this way in the future as well. Does this not signify emerging from the earth? He also says, earth refers to the life of us as human beings. Emerge indicates that at the time of Kosen Rufu, all people in the entire world become votaries, will become votaries of the Lotus Sutra. Anyone, I got it circled, anyone can cause the flower of Myoho Renge-kyo, the lotus of the mystic law, to blossom in the soil of his or her heart. And anyone can become a votary or a practitioner of the Lotus Sutra. It is important that we believe this and that we possess an open mind to take action to engage others in dialogue, to widely spread the Buddhism of the sun, which is the Soka philosophy, frankly, to widely spread the Buddhism of the sun, to dispel the darkness of fundamental delusion. This is our mission. In the depths of their lives, all people eagerly long to encounter the Buddhism of the sun. Nichiren's conviction in Kosen Rufu, page 27. Nichiren, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo enables all people to attain Buddhahood. With the revelation of the law and the appearance of the bodhisattvas of the earth, who practice and spread the law for themselves and others, Kosen Rufu can be achieved without fail, says Nichiren Daishonin. In subsequent generations, however, Nichiren's followers ultimately betrayed their teacher's expectations. In other words, for 700 years, almost no one stood up to accomplish Kosen Rufu as a courageous bodhisattva of the earth. The priests weren't telling them that they were bodhisattvas of the earth. Okay, so how could they know? All right, that's why it didn't happen. It was supposed to be something that would happen in a divine point in future when the school of Buddhism had become so large. When either Nichiren Shoshu or the whatever sect, okay? All right, so in subsequent generations, however, so the point is that Nichiren's teaching says, go do Kosen Rufu, be of the same mind as me, be my disciple for the rest of your life. That's his teaching. For 700 years, people chanted Nam-myoho Renge-kyo without doing that.
Oh, right.
Get it?
Right.
Okay, so they betrayed his direction.
Right.
In subsequent generations, however, Nichiren's followers ultimately betrayed their teacher's expectations. His expectation to do what he told them to do.
Right.
In other words, for 700 years, almost no one stood up to accomplish Kosen Rufu as a courageous bodhisattva of the earth. That's what makes Josei Toda so damn cool. This is, of course, not Nichiren's fault. He already achieved Kosen Rufu in terms of establishing the law. Whether Kosen Rufu is actually realized is up to his disciples. When? Worldwide propagation is not possible without the appearance of genuine Bodhisattvas of the earth who inherit Nichiren's spirit. This is what the SGI has accomplished under the leadership of its 3 founding presidents, which is based on what? This is what the SGI has accomplished under the leadership of its 3 founding presidents. Its 3 founding presidents have shared this with Nichiren. Nichiren's conviction in Kosen Rufu. Right. That's the reason why this is the correct teaching. All right? He says, worldwide propagation is not possible without the appearance of genuine Bodhisattvas of the earth. We've already described what makes you a genuine one, who inherit Nichiren's spirit, which means that they are of the same mind as Nichiren. This is what the Soka Gakkai has accomplished under the 3. That Kosen Rufu is a real thing. It's not happy talk. It's a destination that we are absolutely going to arrive at some point. Yeah. Nichiren writes, the entire Japanese nation will chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Of course, Nichiren is not limiting Kosen Rufu to Japan. He mentions Japan as representative of all nations steeped in slander of the law. If we can lead Japan, which Nichiren considered most slanderous, then worldwide propagation is also possible. The aim of propagating Nichiren Buddhism is to enable all people to attain Buddhahood. It is only natural, therefore, that Nichiren Buddhism is spread throughout the world so that many Bodhisattvas of the earth can appear. Page 28.9. Now you must build your reputation on the Lotus Sutra and give yourself up to it. This is very important. At the ceremony in the air, when the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions gathered together, the 2 Buddhas, Shakyamuni and Mini Treasures, nodded in agreement. What they decided on was nothing other than the perpetuation of the law throughout the latter day. Many Treasures Buddha had offered Shakyamuni Buddha a place beside him, and when they unfurled the banner of Myoho Renge-kyo, the 2 leaders of the entire multitude made their decision together. Could there have been anything false in their decision? Their ultimate purpose in meeting was to provide a way for us living beings to attain Buddhahood. Nichiren is explaining to Sairinbo. Going further on page 29. But now you must build your reputation on the Lotus Sutra and give yourself up to it. This demonstrates the fundamental attitude of a Bodhisattva of the earth who has stood up for Kosen Rufu. This is when you start to go through the shit and you say, no, I'm not going to stop, and there's nothing wrong. I know what I'm doing. Okay? So this is where the men get separated from the boys. This is where a lot of people go titan, right here. Yeah. This is where the genuine practitioners are separated from the wannabes. They really did want to be. It's just that they weren't really Bodhisattvas of the earth. Yeah. Okay? But now you must build your reputation on the Lotus Sutra and give yourself up to it. Give yourself up to it. This demonstrates the fundamental attitude of a Bodhisattva of the earth, one who has stood up for Kosen Rufu. Building one's reputation on the Lotus Sutra means declaring oneself as the Sutra's votary. To make it the greatest honor to live as a votary of the Lotus Sutra. It may also be interpreted as making it one's greatest pride to fight for Kosen Rufu. God damn it, all 3 of those apply to me. Frankly speaking, I can happily say that without a sense of arrogance in my body. Giving up oneself to the Lotus Sutra means establishing in the Lotus Sutra the Gohonzon as the foundation of one's life. I have accomplished that. Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the Lotus Sutra's essence and the entity of the Gohonzon, is the law based upon which people can stand alone. Can stand alone. When we devote ourselves, as expressed by the Sanskrit word Nam, to the Myoho Renge-kyo within us, Buddhahood manifests in our lives. Life, influenced by fundamental darkness, however, changes from bad to worse, from darkness to further darkness. But once life becomes one with the mystic law through faith, and I emphasize that constantly because my faith is coming out of my ears. Once the state of Buddhahood is manifested, because that's what that is, life changes from goodness to further goodness, from brilliance to further brilliance. It advances limitlessly. That's what we're supposed to be doing. Remember, I've said this to the last moment of our life. This is the meaning of standing alone. I'll do Kosen Rufu myself. You can't kill me. Waging a serious battle against everyone's unhappiness, against the devilish functions within oneself and others. This is the resolve of a bodhisattva of the earth. Because they know it's everywhere. It's not something, it's the way it is. Those who make this resolve will stand alone, with the spirit to fight against fundamental darkness. Alone, if they have to, as a bodhisattva of the earth, because they already know that's who they are. Enabling people to bring forth their innate Buddhahood and realize genuine self-reliance. Genuine self-reliance. When you're going to the Gohonzon, they're not praying for the Gohonzon to save you. You're going there to be able to manifest the power within your life to save yourself, to show others. It's you. You are the Buddha, and so are you, and so are you, and so are you. Okay, then we very quickly go on to the ceremony in the air. Nichiren Daishonin on page 30 explains why one builds one's reputation on the Lotus Sutra and give oneself up to it through the passages beginning with at the ceremony in the air. The purpose of the ceremony in the air, at which the two Buddhas, Shakyamuni and many treasures, are seated together, was propagation for the law of the latter day. The ceremony, a meeting of the Buddhas, enabled all people of the latter day to attain Buddhahood. That's because it's what allowed the Daishonin to prop in the 500-year period and go, this is what they were talking about. So it does start there. He says, enabled all people of the latter day to attain Buddhahood. This is the ultimate intent of the Lotus Sutra, is to pave the way for Nichiren in a 500-year period to reveal Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, and for the Bodhisattvas of the earth to begin to give rise, because they don't come until their master has come. Their original teacher has come.
Right.
This is the ultimate intent of the Lotus Sutra, so we should make it our greatest honor to uphold this sutra, making ourselves one of those very most fortunate people, and peacefully devote ourselves to it. The ceremony in the air is an assembly to entrust the propagation of the law during the latter day after Shakyamuni's passing to the Bodhisattvas of the earth. This was done, says Nichiren, this is a typo. This was done, says Nichiren, for the perpetuation of the law throughout the latter day, to spread the law for many generations to come. According to him, the two Buddhas nodded in agreement and unfurled the banner of Myoho Renge-kyo. While this scene does not appear in the sutra, if you read it, you'd know that those words aren't there. But Nichiren qualifies this is what was going on between the two of them. I taught them. I should know. According to him, the two Buddhas nodded in agreement and unfurled the banner of Myoho Renge-kyo. While this scene does not appear in the sutra, Nichiren uses this image to make easily understood the essential meaning of the ceremony in the air. That many treasures as a Buddha of the past, and Shakyamuni as a Buddha of the present, of that moment, at that time, in the ceremony, when the ceremony in the air is being preached, nodded in agreement, symbolizes the universality of the law to be propagated beyond the boundaries of time. To ensure its perpetuation, Myoho Renge-kyo is entrusted to the Bodhisattvas of the earth, the Buddhas of the future. In addition to the perpetuation of the law, Nichiren says that the ceremony of in the air was held to enable all living beings of the latter day to attain Buddhahood. In other words, it took place for the sake of our struggle for Kosen Rufu. Shakyamuni and many treasures nodded in agreement that all the people of the latter day and throughout all eternity could attain Buddhahood. Many treasures is a Buddha of the past. Shakyamuni is a Buddha of the present. The Bodhisattvas of the earth are Buddhas of the future. The universal law to be spread throughout past, present, and future is Myoho Renge-kyo, to spread Myoho Renge-kyo throughout time and enable all people of the latter day to attain Buddhahood. This is what Shakyamuni and many treasures set forth. Nichiren incorporated the ceremony in the air concept into his inscription of the Gohonzon. Just as with the ceremony in the air, the Gohonzon is for enabling all people of the latter day to attain Buddhahood. The Gohonzon was not described so that priests could hide in their temples and expand their authority. Nichiren inscribed the Gohonzon for Kosen-rufu, for the happiness of all people. President Ikeda writes, the Gohonzon is a mirror for vividly perceiving the truth of life. That's exactly what it is if you know how to utilize it. In a specific sense, the sun dispels the darkness of the latter day of the law, represents Bodhisattva's superior practices, leader of the Bodhisattvas of the earth, and Nichiren Daishonin, who takes on the role of Bodhisattva's superior practices. But in general, in a general sense, all who struggle for Kosen-rufu in the latter day of the law with the same mind and spirit as Nichiren Daishonin are Bodhisattvas of the earth. They are suns and lotus flowers. Japan and the world are now shrouded in such pervasive darkness that the future is obscured in gloom. As practitioners of the Daishonin's Buddhism, we therefore have a truly important mission to fulfill. After all, the deeper the darkness, the more brilliantly the Buddhism of the sun shines. It is for this purpose that we chose to be born in this world. As such, our only course is to dedicate our lives to this fundamental vow. And then it ends with this, the Chinese character for emerging on page 33. Lastly, let's look at the Chinese character for emerging and emerging from the earth. Some Lotus Sutra manuscripts use the character dancing instead of emerging. Nichiren Daishonin writes, when Bodhisattva's superior practices emerged from the earth, did he not emerge dancing? The Bodhisattvas of the earth dancing out of the earth. This is what Nichiren foresaw. Accordingly, let us refresh our awareness as Bodhisattvas of the earth and strive toward Kosen-rufu with the momentum necessary to dance out of the very earth itself. Thank you.